Dun, 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 dun.
It's showtime, people. Week 1 in the books and no shortage of fireworks across the SEC. As expected, when you've got a matchup list that lengthy and that compelling, obviously there's going to be plenty to talk about. And who better to do it with than the one and only Jason Campbell? I'm Taylor Davis. Welcome in, everybody, to SEC State of Mind, brought to you by FanDuel. So, Jason, we talk for so long in the off season, spring ball, fall camp. I mean, the build up to season is always immense. You finally get a game under your belt. You go against someone other than your own teammates. You have a better understanding of what you're really working with. So we've got a laundry list of games we're going to talk about, but straight away, who impressed you most in week 1 and who disappointed you most in week 1 in the SEC?
Ooh, impressed me the most is it's a really good one when you think about it. I guess I have to go with LSU. Impressed me the most when you
Yeah.
think about going on the road, playing in a hostile environment against a top 14. Who had the quarterback, the defense, the
Yeah.
receivers. They missed their top receiver, he got hurt early in the game. Clemson is a team to be reckoned with, and for me, LSU defense has been their issue, right? So for them to come out defensively and really show up. I thought was, on a big stage to finally get that win
Right.
since I think 2019, their season opener. So
Yep.
to me, they impressed me. I could go, I could say my Auburn Tigers impressed me from the offensive line standpoint. 307 yards rushing against a Dave Aranda's defense is impressive just because you got 5 new guys working together. To me, that's not easy to go on the road and do that in your first game against a really competitive team. Baylor's got a team to be reckoned with. But my biggest disappointment, I would probably say, everyone knows, is Alabama.
Yeah, of course.
I don't want to get on that bandwagon but facts are facts. And you look at that football team, it's almost like they get off the bus like they knew they was just going to win the game. And FSU came out there with the mentality and the attitude that we're going to take the game. Constantine said something earlier this summer, that Coach Saban can't save you when you come here. And he didn't back down from it. And then I saw pregame, the guy was just constantly going to his teammates and they was just rallying behind him. And he started the game that way. He didn't stop. He played that way. He played with an edge. The team played with an edge. And like everybody say, the Gus bus, again, Alabama. But to me, Alabama have more problems than just one. I saw a lot of discipline issues.
Yeah.
Guys late hitting or getting those penalties that you just don't see from them in crucial points of the game. And then, their star receivers dropping balls and just, quarterback issues, was glaring this game as well.
I mean, I hate to toot our horn so early with this new show, but I would like to go back to last week because when we picked our upset potential, my boy here said Alabama is likely to get upset by Florida State. And when we talked what coach needs to make the biggest statement, I said Kalen DeBoer. You got to show that you get the SEC and you get what this dynasty really has been built on the backs of. And it was discipline, consistency of expectation and execution. You didn't see that from this Alabama team this past week. And a 31-17 loss to a Florida State team that really did show that in today's age of the transfer portal, I guess you can flip this thing really easily. 2-10 last season. You come out the gate, beat an Alabama team that has been, traditionally excellent. But the way in which they won, Jason, you mentioned quarterback Thomas Castellanos coming in, Gus Malzahn as the play caller. Man, Gus Malzahn and a run threat dual quarterback like Castellanos, I mean, just match made in heaven. And Mike Norvell really seeing where he needed to bring in help and letting Gus really take the reins. It just all worked. And I think that's what is more nerve-wracking for Alabama fans, maybe even SEC fans in general. It wasn't just that Alabama lost week 1. It was how they lost. Right. They were dominated at the line of scrimmage. And that is not something you are used to seeing on both sides of the ball. It was lost at the line of scrimmage. Florida State was in your face every single play. And Alabama almost looked lethargic. And I have not said that about a Crimson Tide team in a really long time. The penalties, the false starts. And honestly, I don't point the finger at Ty Simpson, who was 22 of 43 for 254 yards, 2 touchdowns. He never found a rhythm. I mean, they were beat at the line of scrimmage, and it almost looked like an energy and effort thing. And that is never the case for Alabama. So, are you more impressed by what Florida State has been able to do, hitting the portal, bringing in Gus Malzahn, and really kind of going back to the drawing board? Or are you concerned that Alabama may have the wrong guy at the helm?
I think, honestly, I give respect to Florida State.
Yeah.
Coach Gus, when he has a running quarterback and a guy that can throw, his offense does dynamic things.
Yeah.
I think other than that, though, they kept a base of their team and they got some good transfers, and it all starts with the quarterback. But when you look at North Carolina, for example, they brought in 70 new players.
Oof.
And you saw last night how that thing fell apart quickly.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of guys that's used to each other. Now, I will say this. I'm very concerned with Alabama.
Okay.
And for the reasons you just mentioned, you got beat up front. Alabama's a team that typically doesn't get beat up front. There are guys that are physical at the line of scrimmage and at the point of attack, and they typically try to set the tempo of the game early.
Right.
And they're kind of used to being hollered at. Let's be honest. Coach Saban was up and down the sideline screaming and challenging guys. Every coach has their own demeanor, so you can never compare coaches. Coach DeBoer is more laid back, says things to guys, but then kind of see if guys going to find their way or let his coaches coach, where Saban was hard on his coaches and his players. So he may have to change the dynamic a little bit, or get out of his comfort zone and understand that, hey, I'm in a conference that is very, very tough, but I am also at a place where the intensity level and the challenges are up here.
Yeah.
And in order to meet that, you can't be afraid of hurting feelings. You can't be afraid of benching someone. Those things are part of the game, especially at that school, because it was hard for anybody to follow Coach Saban in the first place.
For sure.
I don't wish that on anybody.
Yeah.
But he just happened to be the person that accepted the job after going to a national championship, playing in that game, and then going from Washington and going to Alabama. He just happened to be the person that fell into that situation. So for him, though, the talent's there, but until you fix the discipline, talent is just talent.
Yeah, and I think that's why he is going to get the brunt of the blame, and that's the nature of college coaching, obviously. But things like the false starts, the penalties, you expect it to a certain degree in week one. These guys trying to get on the same page communication-wise, but it did look like there was an element of a lack of discipline that maybe has been accepted a little bit more in practice in fall camp than has been in the past. And there were some interesting game plan coaching. Why is Ryan Williams in the slot? He is a space threat. Put this guy out in space. Why are you putting him? 90% of his snaps on Saturday were from the slot. All of last season combined, 20% of his snaps were played in slot. Why are we shifting a guy like that who has shown what kind of a problem he can be out in space? So little decisions like that, the disciplinary issues, that's where you start to panic. Now, I know that Tuscaloosa is probably coming down hard on Kalen DeBoer, and I do not wish that on anybody. At the end of the day, he is still a human being, and you got to give it some time to hopefully go back to the drawing board and fix things. But I do understand Alabama fans panicking, not just because they lost, but the way in which they lost. Now, what was also interesting is coming out of Saturday, that's why the hype train in the offseason, everybody needs to get off the hype train, okay? Bama and Texas, both with losses. Texas, number one preseason team. Why we do preseason rankings blows my mind because they're absolutely pointless. We don't know anything. Arch Manning, unfortunately, had to go against a stout Matt Patricia coach defense. I was watching Dan Orlovsky break down this film of all the different looks that they were showing Arch even pre-snap. I mean, they had such a good plan dialed up for a quarterback that does not have the experience to adapt as quickly as he needed to. Why that piece of it was never talked about in the preseason blows my mind. He looked great against lesser competition last season and at home. You go play in the horseshoe against an Ohio State defense that is veteran and multiple. it's a recipe for disaster. Now, they were able to stay in it, just a one possession loss. I think Texas is going to be okay, but I think it reiterates what we were saying last week, that it is far too early to be putting a Heisman in this guy's hands. He has so much to learn. He was 17 of 30 for 170 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Really never looked comfortable, but I'm not saying hope is lost on Texas. They don't need to hit the panic button the same way I think they are in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, they didn't have the disciplinary actions that cost them the ball game.
Totally.
Think about it. They got to the 1 yard line. They went for a quarterback sneak, and they got stuffed at the 1 yard line, which takes points off the board.
Yeah.
Overall, we talked about Arch coming into this game, a hostile environment. It's one thing to come in the game as a backup and no one's really prepared for you, and then you do well. Yeah. It's another game where you're a starter, and now people have weeks and time to prepare for you. So, going into that ball game, like you can tell there was some nerves. Even his first pass, it was wide open. He ended up, throwing it at the foot of the guy. To me, that just said there's nerves, which is understandable. But the overall thing for me about that game is glaringly is, they put too much on emphasis on trying to make sure that Arch performed rather than just running the football, take some pressure off of him, try to get in some third and shorter manageable downs.
That's a great point.
I wish they did, but some of it was on Arch. He did miss some easy crossing routes, where he's throwing the ball at the foot of guys or they were too high. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things that I look at his film too as well is some of his mechanics. Like some of his mechanics kind of got away from him. It's almost like a guy that was out there throwing a baseball rather than throwing a football.
There was a lot of sidearm stuff happening.
A lot of sidearm stuff. And everybody watches Pat Mahomes do this thing because, but yeah, it's one thing to be out there in a ball game, but most baseball guys do that, right? When they're making all these different arm angle throws from different places within the field. So I think once they can clean up some of his mechanics and make some of his throws more accurate, that's the biggest thing I took away from it was the accuracy is not what I expected to see.
Yeah.
And I think that will come with time. He will get better. But to put him in a Heisman and going to this game, I thought was ridiculous. Just because the kid has yet to start a full game and everything. But overall, Ohio State showed that they can replace. They just reload. That's one thing. But I think Texas is going to be okay because their defense is really good.
I agree.
Their defense is really good. That's going to keep them in a lot of ball games and give Arch time to get his rhythm and to catch. That's the difference between Texas and Alabama. Alabama gave up a lot defensively. Texas didn't give up a lot defensively. They kept them in the ball game with a chance to go and win it right there at the end. And they ended up stopping Texas on 4th down. Ohio State stopped Texas on 4th down to keep them from tying the ball game up. So for me, Sarkisian knows how to win.
Yeah.
He's one of the top play callers in the college game. He would get everything fixed. He would get those guys in order. But that was a tall task going against a Matt Patricia defense. Arch Manning saw a professional NFL-style defense in his first real start.
Yes, with veteran guys executing it. I actually think there's a better barometer for Texas only being a 1%. And honestly, they were driving right there at the end. Caleb Downs with the stop before the tight end crossed the marker on 4th down that ended it essentially. But it was a 1-possession game, even with arguably, a bad performance from Arch Manning. And conversely, Alabama really wasn't in it majority of the game against Florida State. And I think that Ohio State is a better team than Florida State. So the barometer of comparison there, I think that Texas still has a really good shot to have a long season. And so does LSU. You mentioned it off the top, most impressive. And obviously that was, a 1-possession score as well, 17-10, but you're in Clemson. We all saw how rowdy it was, how packed the stadium was. It was at night, and all the expectations that ride on LSU and the need for Brian Kelly to get a season opening win. It had all of the makings of LSU can't get it done, but they found a way to do it. And I think you can say confidently that LSU's defense is back. That defense was stout. And they got their defensive coordinator, Blake, from Missouri a couple seasons ago, and he's had time to really pour into these guys, the Weeks brothers and Harold Perkins being back out there. Pyburn had like a sneaky good game. Like there were so many just impact players on the defensive side of the ball that are going to make even the best offenses uncomfortable this season. And Garrett Nussmeier finally got into his rhythm. Caden Durham had a great game on the ground. He rushed for 74 yards, which was commendable. So I really feel good about this LSU team. I think they keep riding this confident, experienced veteran level that they have, and they have, a really good shot. They're going to be tested quickly though. Next week they play Florida, and Florida playing Long Island University to start the season doesn't give you the best indicator, but all signs point to Florida being a really good team this year. So I think LSU, as much confidence as they can take from beating Clemson at Clemson, you have to continue to play like you haven't won yet. And I would imagine for a team that has a lot of confidence and hype, that's got to be challenging. I mean, you've been a part of some of that too. You get into a groove, you know what you're capable of. How do you kind of keep that competitive mindset as if you haven't done anything yet?
Well, the whole mindset is it's about winning championships.
Yeah.
So you can't get settled just because you won one big game and all of a sudden think you arrived. Because now, instead of you being the chaser, now you're the one that's getting chased. So now the LSU's kind of put a target on their back, right? They go to Clemson, they beat a top 14 in the nation in their environment. Now you come back and you get a game this week, but when you play Florida, all the eyes are essentially going to turn right back to LSU. So it just heightens. The more you win, the more people eyeball you, the more pressure that's on you. But at the same time, you got to keep hunting, because you got to feel like, hey, winning 10 games is not enough. Getting to the SEC championship and then getting to the playoffs to contend for a championship is your goal. So you have to keep your prize on their team goal and overall. And leaders keep challenging each other. Don't let guys get comfortable. One thing I do know, players win championships, coaches coach, put you in position to win. But at the end of the day, player-led football teams are the teams
the
that
ones that win. You're 100% right.
So it's on Nussmeier, it's on Harold Perkins, it's on those guys to keep these guys' mindsets in the right place.
Which is why I feel really good about them. Covering Garrett Nussmeier, I can say what you see of him when a camera's in his face and he's doing post-game, that is who he is behind closed doors. I've met his parents. I've talked, that is how he's wired. It's why he's back in Baton Rouge. He could have gone to the league by now, but he is that leader in a very composed and long-term minded kind of way that I think is going to set them up well. He also kind of got into a rhythm with that, which I think is going to serve them well. 134 of his 230 yards were all in the second half. So he kind of got the jitters out early, kind of got back into the groove of going against high-level competition. And then once it started rolling for him, you saw what he's capable of. So feel really good about LSU. We're going to turn the page to this week, but did just want to go ahead and acknowledge a couple other big wins for the conference. Tennessee comfortably took care of Syracuse. It makes you think that Tennessee is actually in a better spot than maybe we all anticipated with Nico Iamaleava's departure. Joey Aguilar seemed to run that thing very effectively, and the Tennessee of old, the ground game just continued to churn. They actually kind of have a three-headed monster this season that seems to be efficient, and it was against Syracuse, who is not a team to scoff at, and Fran Brown is a phenomenal coach. So hats off to the Vols, as well as South Carolina defeating Virginia Tech in the Beamer Bowl 24-11, a very complete game for the Gamecocks. Vakari Swain returned a punt 80 yards for a touchdown. You knew a Beamer ball moment had to happen in that game, and it did. Defense came up with 2 interceptions, and Lenora Sellers put on a clinic. I love watching this guy play. 209 yards and a touchdown through the air, but it's really his ability to extend plays, get off tackles. I mean, this guy is a gamer, and saw his NFL draft stock rise very quickly in week 1. So a lot of good to take away from it. Just those Bama and Texas losses, which are kind of wild, but we'll see what happens the rest of the season with both of them. But I do want to get your week 1 hot take, because like we said, you learn a lot more about teams in week 1 than we could ever know in the preseason or fall camp hype or lack thereof. Give me a hot take that you have from week 1.
Oh, man. My hot take is Auburn, Florida State, and there's one other school. I just can't think of the name of it right now. Would be top 20 that was unranked would be top 20 in the next 2 weeks.
Next 2 weeks. Okay. Well, Auburn plays teams that they should be comfortable
Yeah,
with.
yeah, yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. So
But my
you
real hot take was, do you think Alabama's crazy enough to pay a $70 million buyout to coach
no,
more?
not yet. Not yet. I think
That's
eventually, but not during season. My hot take is kind of a contradiction to yours, and it's going to piss people off who love me. I don't think Auburn answered any of the questions that we had going into season. I think Jackson Arnold, I know. Look, we transitioned this show. We're not Auburn biased anymore, okay? I'm here to talk SEC ball. This Auburn offense being run first is efficient. Jackson Arnold was way more electric than even I expected. It seems to have an internal clock that I think has been lacking at the quarterback position for Auburn for the past few years. And obviously the ground game, well, run the dang ball. If it's working, why are you going to stop, right? We didn't answer any questions about the passing game. And that has been the question around Auburn's offense for a while now. Just 108 passing yards. And I get it. You take what the defense gives you, okay? Running the ball was going to get you a dub. You do it every single time. But I'm just saying, as much confidence as you can take from a win in Waco on a Friday night, we don't have answers to some of the questions that we were talking about 3 weeks ago. And so I just think that passing game is going to need to evolve. A guy like Cam Coleman only having one catch an entire game is not going to be the recipe, because eventually you're going to face a defensive front that shuts Jackson Arnold down and puts extra guys in the box to spy on him, and it will become more difficult. So that's one of my hot takes. And my fun hot take that people are also probably going to get annoyed with: field stormings are becoming too common. Florida State, what are you doing storming the field after beating Bama? I understand Bama has been a dynasty, but it's week 1. For all we know, Alabama's going to suck this year, and you might as well storm the field after beating a local high school team. We are diminishing what it means to storm a field, doing it so flippantly. And I think that we really need to save it for the truly, truly special occasions. And that's my hot take.
I get it. You're absolutely right about storming the fields.
Yeah.
Like they was preseason ranked number 8, not preseason ranked number 1. And
what does preseason mean?
right, let it get deep into the season where it actually means something. Because as a Florida State person, you should know and expect more from your team anyways. Like last
Act
season,
like you've been here.
that's not Florida State. You're not a
Totally.
2-10 program, you
Yeah.
know. So you should be more excited about what you saw from your team rather than just beating Alabama. Now,
Facts.
to Auburn, I will say this: when you have 5 new offensive linemen, the first thing they learn how to do in any game is run block first.
Yeah.
A couple times they tried to pass the ball, and I saw a couple blitzes get through and everything, because that means there's still some communication that they have to learn between the offensive line and the running backs to pick up blitzes. So
Sure.
that's going to limit your passing game a little bit.
Yep.
And everything. So I think they did exactly what I did learn from the Auburn game is that last season we kind of got away from the run when we should have been running it late in games to finish the games.
Especially when you had Jarquez Hunter.
Yeah,
but I digress.
Yeah, and this time we stuck with the run and we finished the games. I think that's going to help us later. It's going to help us quicker than we think, because when you do get against the teams like the Georgias and the Texas A&Ms who have great defensive lines, they're going to stack the box and they're going to force you to throw the ball. Now, these next 2 weeks are important for our passing game, because now you got the running game feeling good, right? You got some comfort level there. You got 2 new running backs toting the ball in Damari and Cobb. So now you get those guys comfortable. Now, okay, let's start to work on our passing game while we still continue to run the ball as well. But then when you get to those games where teams are loading the box and you're 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, you still feel confident enough that you can run the ball and get the first down. But you're also, these next 2 weeks is about building rhythm with Jackson Arnold and these receivers, because like you said, Cam has to have more than one catch.
Yes.
You know, Eric Singleton probably has to touch the ball a little bit more.
Yeah.
Malcolm Simmons has to have more than one catch. So I completely agree, you know, that 15 attempts we know is not Coach Freeze and Coach Nitt's idea.
Right.
But I was confident and happy that they stuck with what was winning the game for us.
Was working.
It was
100%.
working. So from that part, I was happy, but like you said, though, these next 2 weeks are valuable and important in how we
Yeah,
connect on our passing game to continue to build that rhythm. Now, my
100%.
other hot take that I didn't want to say was anybody ever heard of rapping? You know, if you go back and watch the Mississippi State and Southern Miss game, my girl Taylor's on the sideline rapping while the DJ was blowing music through the stadium and didn't
All
know she
right,
was being recorded. So she's dropping the album, everybody.
bruh.
So Taylor, what's up with the rapping though? Like what's up?
You know what? It's something that really surprises people about me that like all I listen to is rap. I'm originally from small town in Alabama. I went to Auburn. I live in Nashville and I don't listen to country music. I listen to rap and hip hop and my memory is pretty good. So my lyrical prowess just comes out every now and then. Especially pregame when I'm just like getting in the zone or whatever. And unbeknownst to me, I was being recorded. And then once I realized the DJ was recording me, I'm like, oh my gosh, you think this is cool? You like this song? Yeah, it's gone viral. So I'm a little embarrassed, I'm not gonna lie, because that is a little cringe, but I am who I am, and you gotta do what keeps you loose before a game. I get nervous before a broadcast, so I just had to
Yeah.
vibe out and yeah, but I try really hard to give hot takes and do my job really well and to know ball, and that's what goes viral. No, not any of my, really compelling sports analysis or interviews. No, it's going to be me rapping. So, anywho, that was a fun side note of the day. But whatever. So, as we turn the page to week 2, one more award I want to give out from this past week is an SEC standout, whether it's a team, a player, a coach, a side of the ball, a scheme, a play, whatever we think was a real market as big element to the week. We are going to give out the award of SEC standout for the week. I'll go first. My SEC standout is Lenora Sellers, and that is because given what I saw from him last season and the development piece of it, and even a little bit of injury. And there was even a storyline last year about him trying to figure out if he was going to play in his glasses or with contacts. Like, this guy has gone to the nitty gritty details of what makes him the best quarterback for this South Carolina offense. And I think he's figured it out. I think he has put it together. He is such a cerebral player. He's also such a kind guy. He's a great leader. I think him, along with Mike Shula now as offensive coordinator, and Shane Beamer just being one of, if not the most likable head coaches in college football. I think so highly of Coach Beamer. Lenora Sellers, the way they started out season, he gave the game ball to Frank Beamer, who obviously had an interesting tie to this game at the end of it. I think Lenora Sellers is poised to have a really, really compelling season, and he's one I've got my eye on already.
I like that. Like I said, he did when the game was on the line. They tried to tackle this guy, and he just shoved 3 guys off of him and picked up 10 yards.
Yeah.
So he put his Superman cape on towards the end of the ball game and sealed it for Virginia Tech. I mean, for South Carolina. Now, when you talk about mine, I'm going to go with Gus Nussmeier, and the reason is because
Gus Nussmeier. Garrett
Garrett
Nussmeier.
Nussmeier.
Gus Nuss.
I thought about the Gus.
Whatever. You just combined his first and second names.
If you follow this show, you know this will happen often.
Names are not his strength, but that's okay.
It's okay.
Go off, fam.
I'm thinking Gus Bus and Gus Nussmeier. Maybe I just gave his son a nickname when he has
We'll
one.
take it. Garrett Nussmeier.
Garrett Nussmeier.
I like that.
And the reason I say that is because I listen to Herb Street and a lot of guys talk before the game. They talk about how he'll have these great plays, and then he'll have those 1 or 2 plays that make you scratch your head that turns the ball game.
Yeah.
Right. In this game, he stayed the course. He understood the challenge. He tried to keep the ball out of harm's way, to keep his defense in a position, knowing that his defense is playing really good. Don't give Clemson something that they can just easily have, and all of a sudden it flips the game upside down, and now you're crawling from the back. So to me, I go with him because coming out in the second half, the first half, let's get it, Clemson was coming after him. They I think they had 10-3 at the halftime, and they had a
Yep.
chance to go for a field goal, but they decided to go for it on 4th down, which I disagree with. You
Agreed.
always take the points knowing
Yep.
that you're gonna get the ball starting the second half. Um, but the second half to me, like, some of those throws he was making was pinpoint accuracy,
Elite. Yeah.
right? And one that I thought was a touchdown,
It
and
was
they
a touchdown. Literally insanity that they overturned that.
yeah, I was just like, he caught the ball, he reached for the pylon and everything. So he made a football move, which is
Uh-huh.
supposed to be what it is, a football move, and that's what he made, and that should have been a touchdown. That got called back. So the fact that he was able to keep fighting and keep clawing and
Yeah.
lead his team, knowing that those guys are looking at him, and that's the reason why he came back. That's why I have to give him the game ball this week.
Yeah, I love that. SEC standouts Lenore Sellers and Garrett Nussmeyer, also known as Gus Nuss, will get it next week. And obviously, a guy who excelled at the quarterback position in the SEC back in his day. So I want to get this little tidbit from you. We'll call this quarterback corner, perhaps. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Lenore Sellers, Arch Manning, Ty Simpson, Garrett Nussmeyer. Let's talk about some of the ones that we haven't necessarily
Mhm.
highlighted thus far because of who they played in week one, but had impressive showings nonetheless. Arkansas quarterback Taylon Green, 322 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions against Alabama A&M. Missouri has been having a quarterback battle all offseason between Bo Pribula and Sam Horn. Sam Horn won the battle, started the game, unfortunately suffered a leg injury on the first snap and went out. They renew an old rivalry with Kansas this weekend, so that will be interesting what we're going to see at that position from them. Texas A&M quarterback Marcel Reed returns, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns. Very little run game for them against UTSA this past week, but 4 touchdowns for Marcel Reed. We saw what he could do last year as well. Ole Miss, the following of Jackson Dart, which are pretty big shoes to fill. Austin Simmons had 341 yards and 3 touchdowns. So obviously some guys to keep our eyes on. And Gunnar Stockton also had a great day for Georgia. Georgia kind of flying under the radar right now, which is
Yeah.
exactly how Kirby Smart likes it. He either does that or he makes you think that the whole world hates you. So one of the two. Which quarterback do you think has potential to make the biggest impact moving forward? The only real, level up as far as tests go will be for Ole Miss. They play Kentucky this weekend, but I mean, what Arkansas has in Taylon Green, you feel like they could end up playing spoiler for some teams this year. And then, of course, Vanderbilt's Diego Pavia. What quarterback that we haven't talked about as much really has your attention?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's 2 ways to this for me. Diego Pavia went 20 for 25 with 275 and 3 touchdowns. But then you look at Kentucky, they played Toledo, and Zach Calzado was 10 for 23, 85 yards, and 1 interception.
Yep.
So, Kentucky has some real worries.
They do.
You think about you got a guy in Zach Calzado who's like 6th year, and you're expecting him to help lead your football team. And all of a sudden he goes 10 for 23 for 85 yards and interception against Toledo.
Yeah.
It's kind of something to be worried about if you're a Kentucky fan.
Right.
Now, when you look at Vanderbilt, this team has so much confidence.
Mm-hmm.
That is a dangerous place to play this year for anybody that's going into Vanderbilt and playing this football team.
Agreed.
Just because of they had a well balanced, they rushed the ball for 201 yards. But Taylor, my whole thing about all the guys you just mentioned that played quarterback this week that played against lesser opponents, what do? They statistics went shot through the roof.
Yeah, as they should.
Right. That's on purpose. Why?
Yeah.
How the coaches want to get those quarterbacks confidence against those lesser opponents, because when they know they're going to need them when they get against challenging, they're going to need them to feel confident in their ability to throw the football. That's why I say for Auburn, these next 2 weeks, it's pivotal that we kind of follow that line a little bit to make sure that, hey, our quarterback is feeling confident enough when we get into these big games that he can thread the ball in there on 3rd and 8. He can, thread the ball when it's got to be called upon to keep the game moving. So I like what all these coaches did with all these guys, giving them confidence in these game starters. But overall, this is going to be a fun season. There's going to be a lot of unknown. There's teams that we really don't know. Like Mississippi State was slow the first half. Southern Miss was giving them everything they can handle, and all of a sudden, the second half, you saw the depth of the SEC and the strength take over.
Yeah.
So South Carolina, how good are they?
Yeah.
We're gonna see Tennessee. We're gonna see all these teams play each other. So the meat and the potatoes, as people say, will start to separate.
For sure. As it should. I agree. I mean, I think even last night's game, Sonny Dykes keeping TCU starting quarterback in the game into the fourth quarter when that thing wasn't close from the first drive. I mean, woof. That's another good example. So much of the Texas conversation has been about Arch Manning. So much of the UNC conversation has been about Bill Belichick. That's not going to play the game. That doesn't amount you to wins and losses. So all of these extra storylines, you hear coaches say it all the time, like, you have to block out the noise. It's imperative because that's not ultimately what's going to win you ball games. But yeah, I think Ole Miss Kentucky being our first SEC on SEC matchup will be interesting because Kentucky has weirdly had Ole Miss's number in the past. Number 6 Ole Miss last season lost to Kentucky 20-17. That was Kentucky's lone SEC win of the season. And the way they did it against a Lane Kiffin offense, this was really the Achilles heel. They dominated time of possession, 39-43 to 20-17. They also won the turnover battle, and they held the Rebels 1 of 10 on third down. That is the recipe for stalling a Lane Kiffin offense, regardless who is under center, because obviously Jackson Dart's going to go down in history as one of Ole Miss's greats. So it'll be interesting to see this one, but I don't think that Kentucky necessarily has the firepower to do it this season. With quarterback Zach Calzada, like you said, our friends over at FanDuel, they have the total sitting at 49.5 in this one. I'd take the under. I think they're going to try and run the ball and drain the clock because Zach Calzada didn't show enough against Toledo. I don't know why you would feel like he's going to be able to get into rhythmic offensive drives the same way. So I don't necessarily see it being a super high scoring game, but we shall see. Ole Miss defense held Georgia State to just 69 passing yards, 9 yards in the second half this past week. Rushed for 195, though. So Kentucky may try an attack on the ground. Ole Miss showing some vulnerability there. So we get into some SEC play. I saw you flinch when I said I would take the under. You disagree?
You make your biggest improvement from week 1 to week 2. And
True.
I just know Lane Kiffin offense may put up 30 by themselves.
Okay.
So that's why I say I would probably 51 would probably be my max.
Okay. Fair. So I think that's going to be interesting to see if Ole Miss can get back on that one. Another big one in the SEC, though, Michigan versus Oklahoma. And this one has a lot of those off-the-field storylines as well that I was mentioning. Head coach Jerome Moore played at Oklahoma, so he returns to his alma mater. Obviously, there has been a little bit of drama surrounding that program. He's actually going to have to serve a little bit of a punishment and take a couple weeks off because of some of the stuff tampering that was going on, but gets to coach at this one. Per our friends at FanDuel, Michigan is currently a 6.5 point underdog with the over under set at 46.5. Now, both of them brought in new quarterbacks for Oklahoma. You've got John Mateer, who broke Baker Mayfield's passing yardage in his Oklahoma debut this past weekend. And Bryce Underwood, a true freshman number 1 player in that recruiting class this past year. He was 21 of 31 for 251 passing yards in week 1. A Venables defense could be a challenge for a young freshman, but he's a big dude, and he seemed tough and very locked in, winning the job as a true freshman at a program like Michigan. You got some chops if you got that, but a lot of high hopes for John Mateer too. Do you view this as a must win for Brent Venables?
Is this game in Oklahoma?
Yes.
Yes, this is definitely a must win for him because you want to show that you can beat a big opponent. You brought in California's running back, Jordan Ott, and then now you get John Mateer, Jaden Ott, and then you get John Mateer as a quarterback, which his quarterback coach was at Washington State with him, is now the offense coordinator at Oklahoma. So, there's a lot of talent there. So, yes, this is a big win for a big game for Venables.
Interesting, because look, they're you hate to say hot seat already, but I mean, last season there was a lot of conversation around Brent Venables being the right choice for that program, and was he better suited as just a defensive coordinator, because obviously he's been phenomenal everywhere he's been as a DC. So I agree with you. Game day is going to be there this weekend. There's a lot of hype around this one, and I don't really necessarily know enough about John Mateer. Like I said, breaking Mayfield's record in his debut is great, but I think he's going to have to level up. I think he's going to have to do more than he did in week 1. So that one will be interesting. Vanderbilt heads to Virginia Tech, Arizona State, Mississippi State. But Vanderbilt, Virginia Tech is interesting. I actually covered that matchup last season. It was the season opener for both teams. Virginia Tech came to Nashville and played Vanderbilt. Game went into overtime, and Vandy got the dub. It was really everyone's intro to Pavia Mania. No one really knew about the quarterback from New Mexico State until that game. And let me tell you what, Virginia Tech felt embarrassed. Being on the sidelines, watching them walk off, there was a look of, did that just happen? And obviously, Vanderbilt went on to have a great season. It made a little more sense, but there's no way that revenge is not on the brains for Virginia Tech, and specifically feeling like Diego Pavia ran all over them, made magic happen, and they're going into Virginia Tech. That's a tough. Enter Sandman is one of my favorite entrances. I know this is an SEC show, but it really is one of the coolest entrances in college football. A stadium's going to be rocking, and people want to see revenge happen. And Kylan Jones, the quarterback at Virginia Tech, did a pretty good job against South Carolina this past week. They were just unable to really get some rhythm going, and South Carolina's defense was able to come up, with a couple stalls for them, 2 interceptions, like I mentioned earlier. But I mean, do you really think Diego Pavia can do it again this year? Like, is he that because now there's more film out there on him. Defenses know what to expect a little bit more, but the caveat with a guy like him is you can watch all the film in the world. This guy's improv majority of the time he's out there.
Yeah, Diego has that same thing that Castellanos has.
Okay.
It's that people doubted me because of my size
Yeah.
and everything. So people looked over me. So when these guys play, they play with their heart on their sleeve. They leave it all on the football field. So anytime you lace it up, they always have a chance with these guys at quarterback. So,
Yeah.
but for me though, Drones has to play just a little bit better in the
Agreed.
passing game. He missed some key passes with the game on the line that could have turned the game against South Carolina. But he did also make some great throws as well.
Yeah.
They got some really good receivers. They know how to high point the football. This game is going to be very interesting, to say the least. But tough matchup for Vanderbilt going into a hostile environment, because it will be hostile in VTech.
I agree. But tight end Eli Stowers, man, he's legit, and I think he's going to play at the next level. So I think they're going to try and target him a good bit, and then let Diego be Diego. That one will be interesting for me. And then Arizona State and Mississippi State. This one's interesting too. Obviously, Arizona State coming off a magical playoff run last season. Mississippi State was able to get a win against Southern Miss this past weekend. I was on the sidelines for that one. Like Jason said, it was a bit slower in the first half. They only had a 3-point lead at the half, and Jeff Lebby talked to me at halftime and said a lot of it was the penalties. I mean, the entire game, though, it was penalties, and a lot of miscommunication on the offensive line. To me, that's the biggest concern with Mississippi State. And it was a storyline heading into the game because Coach Lebby had said he wanted to rotate a lot of guys on the line. Their depth chart had 29 oars listed on it. So if you're unfamiliar with the depth chart, usually it's starter, backup, third string, right? It was so-and-so or so-and-so. So it showcased that there was, you could take it one of two ways. They're going to let a lot of guys play in this game because they feel confident, or they're still undecided and it's go time. So the indecision piece of it made you a little nervous. Albert Reese started on the left side. He had only ever played 21 snaps on the left. Okay, so that's a little interesting. They were supposed to have Zach Works starting at right guard. He was unavailable. We were told that the day before the game. He was on the sideline in a boot. So Mississippi State fans, they didn't give us a timetable for his return. But between shifting pieces, missing pieces, the offensive line was nowhere near where it needs to be, especially for SEC play. So I know a lot of people were saying Blake Shapen's not the guy. He, returned from shoulder injury. the velocity of his throws was interesting to me. I think that's something to pay attention to. Can it get a little more zip on it? There was an interception early in the game that just looked like the defender was able to beat the pass. Like that, there was just a little bit of that, but my biggest concern for them was the offensive line. So I think if that gets figured out, Mississippi State starts to gel a little bit more because their run game is legit. Devon Booth and Fluff Bothwell, one of my favorite nicknames. Those two are going to wreak havoc in the backfield. They're big dudes, and I think that they could be effective, as well as Brennan Thompson, who came over from Oklahoma. They had him in the slot. He finally was able to kind of break away. He was clocked at 23.7 miles per hour this offseason. He's one of the fastest guys in college football. So if he and Blake can continue to build that rhythm, I think you start to feel better about it. But it's predicated on the offensive line finding that system and gelling as a unit. So State fans, this one's going to be an interesting test for real. I talked to Blake Shapen after the game, and he was already very excited to get back home and finally play a home game. It's been almost a year to the day since he had even suited up and played ball, let alone been in Starkville. So there's a lot of excitement here, and week 2 is going to give us a little bit more of an indicator of what we're working with. Week 3 sets up with some big ones, though. Like I mentioned, LSU, Florida, and Georgia, Tennessee happens week 3 as well. So we're going to have plenty of coverage for you moving forward. Jason, real quickly to close this one out, week 1 to week 2 jump. What do you need to see most across the conference?
Man, early wins are so important when you look at these conference schedules,
Yeah.
especially Mississippi State this next weekend, because the middle of their
That would be
schedule is a
big.
gauntlet. You
Mhm.
think about Florida, the middle of their schedule is a gauntlet. A lot of schools, Auburn, LSU,
Mhm.
everybody, I can go down the list. So for me, from week 1 to week 2 is you learn the most about your football team because you hadn't been able to tackle for real. And there's a lot of missed tackles that you saw across college football this weekend. A
Yeah.
lot of guys, not wrapping up. So a lot of things for its communication, but to me, you will see better tackling in week 2 than you did in week 1. And
Okay.
you have film with all the transfers to be able to go off of and what to feed from. So I
Very
expect to
true.
see some big jumps from some teams this week. Like I said, more after week 2 than you do week 1.
Okay. Fair. Fair. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I think you also got to clean up some of the penalties because there was a lot of miscommunication across the board early. But you can, as always, catch Jason on the Auburn Radio Network. He will be down in Jordan-Hare, first home game of the season for the Tigers. So you can catch him on the air with Andy Burcham, Ronnie Brown. It was so funny. They kept showing Ronnie on the sidelines during the game broadcast, and they were like, Ronnie Brown's on the sideline. I was like yelling at the TV. He's on radio.
All right, showing all that gray hair.
He is turning gray. I love it. But yeah, you can catch Jay on the Auburn call. And my assignment this weekend, I will be in ACC country this weekend. I have Virginia against NC State. So I will be in Raleigh covering that game. We will be noon Eastern on ESPN2. Both teams got a win this past weekend and have some interesting players to watch for. Quarterback CJ Bailey at NC State was high school teammates with Ohio State's Jeremiah Smith, one of the most electric players in the country. So he obviously has some good preparation under his belt. And then Virginia's quarterback, his dad is Chandler Morris. Chad Morris has had a stint at many colleges, but this guy's been around ball for a long time. So it'll be a compelling matchup, and I look forward to continuing my college football coverage, as I know Jay is as well. And we will be back next week with another episode of SEC State of Mind to break down all the action. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Tell your friends about it as we continue to grow the show. We'll bring you episodes live every Tuesday at 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern, and then upload the audio wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure you subscribe on both, leave a comment and a review, and come on back next Tuesday for another live episode. Enjoy week 2. Peace.
Hey.